This is the Andres Segovia Show.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Andres Segovia Show. I am your host, Andres Segovia. Today is not real estate, and it's not anything business related. And not even health related. It's more artistic and hopefully fun. And I'm looking forward to having this great conversation with the artist of Splat Rabbit. I don't know if there's a team behind it, but we're going to find out today. BeeZ, by all means, please introduce yourself to my audience who may not have heard of you.
Hey there, guys. I am BeeZ Tollinger. I draw Splat Rabbit, the comic on Instagram. You can check that out at splat.rabbit.art. It's a gag-a-day style comic strip. We talk about things that are going on in the world. We talk about, following God, and we just kind of have fun with cartooning hijinks that you don't see a lot on TV anymore. And, we have a lot of fun, but we talk about the real at the same time. That's what we do with Splat Rabbit.
Gotcha. And for those of you that are watching and not listening to the podcast, that avatar he has there is the title character, Splat Rabbit. The first thing I noticed when I saw Splat Rabbit, there were influences of Looney Tunes, at least the classic Looney Tunes to it. Am I right in that assessment?
Oh yes, you're definitely right. I wear my influences on my sleeve a lot of time in my art. Looney Tunes is a big one for me. Just classic gags, and smart ones too. The more literature you read, the more you kind of know about, Hollywood and film and books and stuff, the more you can see those references being played out on screen. And it's just something really nice to see, something that I want to, kind of keep moving forward in my work as well.
Yeah, and I actually did catch that when you dropped a teaser for the continuation of the Chronicles after you wrapped up your 100th episode, and it was I think you call it the girl, is it? That was
Yes,
crying and it was Spider Man in the background. It's like I've seen
the
that
girl.
meme before somewhere, and then you actually juxtaposed it to the other slide, like there it is. It was a SpongeBob thing.
Right. That was my little brother. And SpongeBob's another one of my big inspirations. My little brother sent me that screen cap and was like, for some reason, this frame of SpongeBob just really reminded me of Splat Rabbit. And I was like, you know what? That could be the girl crying and Splat in the picture. So we're going to run with that. And then from there, I was like, because I'm kind of in a mode where I just want to really like plaster the idea of the comic everywhere and do a lot of different creative things with that. So I've been enamored with how great of clips you can make in the Instagram reel builder if you just sit down and save clips and re-upload them and get them situated and everything like that. And so that's when I made the comic cover video using that image and just to promote the comic and send that around and make it kind of fun for everybody because I want to make it creative because that's the main thing. I feel like people who are of a more conservative ilk, they don't embrace creativity like they should, and meanwhile the left like is the king of the arts. So you end up getting a lot of bad messaging, a lot of poisonous messaging from them through art that we are not being very active on. You have a few people stepping up. You have places like Angel Studios with The Chosen and a couple other good music producers and everything like that that are making good work. But on the whole, people that are more conservative in nature, more Christian in nature, that for some reason creativity just leaves the door. But I think that, the creator of all would want us to, stray further, to go further, to create. And, we're one of the few creatures that actually have that ability to create. So we should use that, with our work.
Yeah, it's an awesome point, and I will definitely circle back to that one. But I want to keep the train moving here because is that when did you see the need and to fill it? Like you see a need, fill a need. It's like because it's one thing to be inspired by animation. It's like, oh, I could draw that too. Like, a lot of us
Right.
grow up drawing things. Like I drew Spider Man, I drew Bugs Bunny, and all that. But what inspired you to actually contribute to make your own, and then choosing what you wanted to say with your art?
Well, for the longest time, my concentration was pop art because I've always been kind of enamored by that world, and modern pop art is basically just people taking already popular imagery, popular characters specifically, and putting their own spin with them, whether it's their own unique style or an aesthetic they put on things. Um, and so I kind of come from that world and wanted to do stuff kind of like that. But then after I really came to Christ and really began to kind of fall down the alt-right pipeline, as they say, I kind of stepped away from art and was really kind of more hell bent on getting the literature and reading the Bible and praying and like getting that side of me together. So when I
Mm.
came back to the scene to make art, it was to go back into that pop art field, just kind of more revived, revitalized, with a clear state of mind, a better, more defined worldview. But as I began to go back into it, I was like, you know what? You wanted to be, as a kid, I kind of wanted to, help to influence people and bring people to Christ anyway. Of course, it was not on the best terms, but that was always a thing that was kind of in me. I think maybe something that God may have put within me, to continue this trail. I just needed time to kind of mature and get my thoughts in order first. And so, with that being said, I began to do the Splat Rabbit comic, and from there, that's where really pushing a more biblical centered worldview began to really come into my work and what I'm trying to build out and build into more because I want to do more with that angle than anything.
Uh, so, Splat Rabbit. Tell us about Splat Rabbit.
So Splat Rabbit is a blue-gray desert hare. Yes, he does have a specific breed of rabbit type figure. He is a desert hare, and he's called Splat because his body is like slime. He can use it to transform into anything, whether that's a fish, a plump, ripe Bible story telling tomato, whatever he needs to be for the situation, he
Wink,
can
wink.
be. Um, and so basically, he lives in this town, Silemville, and Silemville is like your typical liberal city. A lot of them just want to get by and are just going with the social mores of the time. Some of them have harsher intentions, such as the girl who is just like super pro-choice, is constantly spewing evil, atheistic, feministic, whatever the current thing is. She's supporting it, and she just gets under Splat's, tries to get under Splat's skin, tries to expose him, tries to one up him a little bit. But Splat just, he doesn't care. And then about midway through our current run, we decided to really like play into that Looney Tune element and started giving Splat dynamite and stuff to use. And that's what resulted in the creation of the Blammer, his fire-powered hammer that he uses to defeat the girl in Comic 100, which we just had not too long ago. And so, yeah, Splat Rabbit just basically exists to stand against leftist opinion, satanic opinion, antichrist opinion. And we have a cast of characters that kind of help him along with that. We have Rudy Wood Duck, who is kind of like your typical barstool conservative bro, but him and Splat are friends. Splat's trying to basically get him on the right path, and for the most part, Rudy agrees with what Splat has to say. But when it comes to beer and babes, I mean, he's just not having it. He wants to indulge. And then you have the newest character, Bear, who's like the muscle of the group, who it's a bear that Splat found while on sabbatical in the woods. After he created the Blammer, he was like, I got to get some peace from God. So he went out to the woods to kind of like, get that peace. And on the way, he meets a bear and he teaches the bear about God. And now the bear wants to be a disciple too. So now you have these three in the woods, trying to spread the love of God to whoever they can meet, whether that's camper, whether that's more animals. We have a lot of ground to cover. We're kind of in a new season of the comic. So a lot of that stuff is being built out as we speak.
And when you say we, does that mean there's a team behind you too?
I when I say we, I'm referring to me and the Holy Ghost because there's no team. It's just me. It's
Sounds like
just
the team
me.
already. No, that's not like the team.
Yeah.
Because that means you're well. It's digital art, I'm assuming, but
Yes.
I'm assuming you're the penciler, the color, the illustrator, all in one. So that means everything, the final product from beginning to end, from the script or the storyboarding, if you will, that's all you.
This is true. Yes, I get, the Holy Spirit, all glory to Christ. I get ideas from them. I sometimes out of nowhere, like I'm not even thinking of a certain subject and these things will pop up and I just know that's the Holy Spirit, helping the work, giving me a word for the people. But yeah, I usually starts with an idea that goes to the sketchbook. I draw it in the sketchbook. It comes up as sketches that I sometimes post, and then I'll take a picture of it, put it into Procreate, and in Procreate we render them, get the line work done, then color it out, add the wording, the lettering, and everything like that. Get it formatted for different sharing options, and then we put it on out there.
Nice, nice. And it, because I'm familiar with Scott Adams' work, does Dilbert. He sometimes hammers out his comics panels sometimes even months in advance. At least used to when he was really had the white heat and was really working on it. It's what your process sounds a lot more tedious than his did, because a lot of it's like just outlines of a character, not colored and all that. Um, so how long is the process, and how many panels ahead of time do you do, or is it literally you create the contents that comes out of that week just the week before?
I could tell you it sometimes goes down to the day.
Oh man.
At, at my most prepared, I'll have like a whole bunch of comics done ahead of time. Like for example, on the lead up to comic number 100, I had pretty much all 10 of those, from number 90 to number 100, already sketched and drawn and ready. And so from there, it was just a process of waking up, getting the stuff inked and rendered out digitally, and then putting it out there. When it comes to a time where maybe I don't have a theme, or I am looking around the internet for news and stuff to kind of spoof, or whatever I can do, um, that's when the process takes a little bit longer, because I'm over here trying to actually actively think about it, and then I have to then draw it out and everything like that. But typically, if from start to finish, let's say on one of those lazier days, I guess one of those less motivated days, um, it'll probably take me around about 5 hours start to finish if I just hunker down and boom, that's what I'm going to do for the moment to get it all done from idea to final render.
Mm. Yeah, I know what it's like to come down to the wire, like because I'm a content producer myself. So I had it where it's like, okay, the episode I have planned to go up, because I produce an episode for every single Monday. This past summer is the first time I just took a hiatus because I was having my wife was having our fourth child, and there was a big move
Wow,
that was
glory
happening.
be.
Yeah, that's a story in of it itself. That I'm gonna share about soon. I've shared a little bit here and there, but not everybody knows the entirety of the story, and um, that's what kind of threw a lot of things out into a loop, because when I came back, the series that I was working on before I had the hiatus, because baby showed up a little sooner than he was impatient. He wanted to show up sooner rather than later. So like, oh, okay, cool.
Hmm.
But the thing is, I was working on a Save California series because I'm based out in SoCal, and I had the vice president of communications from the Howard Jervis Taxpayers Association on, and I announced that this was the first in a series of videos I was going to do. And because of what went down during the hiatus, because there was one weekend for the 4th of July weekend, we were welcoming our newborn. The following weekend, we were in the intensive care unit. And so it's like, okay, this is not how I expected anything to go. So I didn't want to open up about any of it, but when I did, the outpour support was amazing. It's amazing when they say, "Well, we'll lift you up through prayer." It really, I all of us felt lifted through prayer and all that, and it was amazing. So I was giving more or less daily updates about that. So when I came back, I felt that I needed to kind of change the the schedule a bit. So I put up a poll and I asked, "Hey, I'm doing a California series, Safe California series, Fixed California series. Uh, how many of you prefer that I continue that or focus on health things? So like nutrition, fitness, mental health, and all that." Everybody
Yeah.
said shift to health, and the overwhelming number one was mental health. So okay, so that's the episode I haven't done yet, and I'm running out of time for the Safe California stuff because the election's coming up. But that's all to say. Sometimes because there's a wrench thrown into the system, it's like I don't have an episode to go up. So what I've done, especially in preparation for hiatus, um, I create clips of my episodes. I'm like, wait, why am I just gonna throw out an entirely a lengthy interview that most people are not gonna probably tune in, but they'll probably tune into a clip of that episode and be inspired to tune into the full thing. So I started doing that. And right now, I have about 7 to 8 clips that I've just been sitting there for weeks, just waiting for like, okay, I couldn't post a new episode this past Monday for the show because the schedule changed at the last minute. I'm like, it's okay, because I had a whole other episode that no one's ever seen before in the public that I was going to put up, and I did, and that one's getting a lot of traction. So I as content creators, people don't know what it means to come down to the wire, but sometimes I even hammer it out. It's like, you know what, I'm just going to go do live. So I just turn on the camera. It's like, yo, here's a live episode. So
Yep.
it's dirty because it doesn't have all the flashy stuff sometimes. But I'm like, hey, you came here for the content, not for the glamour, so it's okay.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Just watch the Late Show if you want to get the glitzy, glammy, fakeness. We real out here. We're actually
Yeah,
trying to make a
exactly.
product.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like how far you've come along in telling your story. I think I tuned in because you and I were both on the Trevor Report for a special podcast episode, and that's where you and I met. And I'm like, dude, I want to talk to this guy on my show about what he does too. And I think you might have been on around a panel or comic like 75 to 80. So then
That
I
sounds about
start,
right.
yeah, because you were introducing Bear around somewhere around there, and
Yeah.
that's that storyline was really good, by the way.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you. I appreciate it.
it
Glory
happens
to
without
God.
spoiling for people. I'm not gonna spoil for people, but it happens with new converts. Like first it's like it's them like trying to get out of their comfort zone, right? And then feeding you're antagonizing me. No, I feel challenged. I gotta rise greater than that. And then when they come to realize, now it's like, yeah, let's go. It's like, no, that's not what Christ called us to do.
Mm-mm.
Put your sword down. It's
Right.
that kind of thing. It's like, calm down. Seriously, those things just I really like that storyline and how far it's come to where you reached, because it, even though it's animated, I do like that there's a lot more to it in it, in that some people might find things relatable. The thing about animation, I suppose, is that you can tell a story, I guess, exaggerated, but
hmm
that does tend to be the case with, I guess, with us. Sometimes we might take an event a lot more emotional than others, but might not express it. But you can do that through animation, where someone clicks like, yeah, that's kind of how I felt. So I think that's what I got a lot about the bear. It's like, yeah, at first he looked docile, then next thing you know, the next panel is like, "Rawr," like all in your face. It's like,
Right.
yeah, that's yeah, that I can relate to the bear. 'Cause I think the bear is me in attitude. So yeah, the, uh, when what kicked off the bear? Did you run to somebody, or that just came like a spur of inspiration? Like, I'm gonna create this one character. Not that you run into somebody and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make a character out of you.
Well, it depends. Like, in the case of the girl and Rudy, there definitely were archetypes that I was trying to hit on the head. Obviously
Mhm.
angry feminist, barstool conservative, that sort of thing. The bear's a unique situation where really I just wrote the initial gag with him, and I think the very first comic that it was Splat was explaining how wonderful the woods were, how much he loved it, how much he's being reminded of God's invisible glory being revealed through his creation, everything like that. But the whole time he's kind of dangling in a weird position, and you're like, why is Splat like hanging up like that? And then just before he sets up the gag, he's like, yeah, there's one thing about living out in the woods that I don't like. And it zooms out, and he's in the mouth. He's like hanging out of the mouth of this bear, and he's like, yeah, I don't like bears too much and everything like
Yeah.
that. And so it was that initial gag, and it was just a random bear that I drew. And then I was like, the more that we begin to kind of play into it, I mean, he's in the woods anyway. And then I followed it up with the comic where the bear is like razzing him, like roaring in his face, doing the typical bear thing. And Splat pops him in the mouth and is like, hey, shut that shit up, bro. And then he's like, so from there it was like, I think they have an understanding. Let's keep going with this. And so eventually Splat was like, let me sit the bear down. Let me show him the woods and how beautiful things
And I,
are, and let me tell him about God. And then the bear's
yeah,
like, "Who's God?" And it's like, "Whoa, hey!" But yeah,
yeah,
that was the big thing with Bear. It was a random kind of a random moment that ended up kind of being like a happy accident. Now he's kind of like a character that people love to see, and I'm kind of grateful that it kind of played out the way it did.
yeah. Did you expect that kind of reception? Because it seemed like the overwhelming majority just like really embraced the character. They loved his
Yeah,
arc.
no, I mean they were all about it, and anytime you create something and the people are into it, then you want to embellish that more. So now the mission is going to be to make sure that these characters keep a harmonious balance to them. That's one thing, with this whole creation process that I've been able to kind of push myself on is I used to be so impatient when it came to projects. If I would put something out to my friend group, my family, or whatever, and they weren't just clamoring for more, then I'd kind of put it away, be like, well, that's a failure, and I'd go on to something else. With this one, I told myself, no, we're going to get through it. We're going to put it out there. We're going to move a little differently while we put it out there, which I think that's led to a lot of the consistency and the sharing and tagging and collaborations that have happened. Because it's like these people that you think are so famous and so big, like they're actually pretty reachable, and so you just kind of have to have that bravery and you have to have that instinct to want to go out and reach out to people, because that's the name of the game. It's the internet of people, so use those people. And so just to be able to create and put stuff out there and people embrace it is just a tremendous blessing. Like I said, all glory to God for everything that has come of the strip, because without him, it'd be nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was curious, because I can't really tell because of the boom arm, but right here is where I reserve anything for Batman, and it's my favorite Batman graphic novel, The Long Halloween. So that was written by Jeff Loeb, and the artist Tim Sale, who recently passed away young too, for what he did. He passed away young, unfortunately. But that some people don't really grasp what they look down upon works like these, and they're like, "Oh, that's just for kids." I know my in-laws, who, because I married my wife's Taiwanese, and my in-laws are in Taiwan, so to them that kind of stuff was always like that's really kiddish stuff. So when they came over and spent the summer, because they were welcoming the newest grandchild, they, well, to pass the time, put movies on. But if I told them I was going to play a Batman movie, they wouldn't watch it. So then I just popped in the Blu-ray for Batman Begins. I let it play out, and then when Batman shows up, wait, this is a Batman movie? So like, yeah, it's all from these things. Like this, it's all derived from this. Like, oh my gosh, this is really good. So they ended up watching the trilogy. They absolutely loved it.
That's an amazing set of movies.
Yeah,
Amazing set of
unfortunately,
movies.
they couldn't enjoy The Dark Knight because historically, The Dark Knight, because China had its issues against it, they banned the movie from China. So when they banned it, because they said there was a stereotype that they didn't appreciate or whatever regarding the accountant Lau going to Hong Kong. So when they banned it, I guess Warner Brothers didn't feel the need to create Mandarin subtitles. So I, using VLC player, played the film, but I had to get subtitles from trusted sources, and unfortunately, some of them are fan made, and they're not the official ones, so they wasn't translating correctly, different dialect and this and that. So they couldn't get into the second film, unfortunately, because
Oh
there
man.
just weren't any properly approved Mandarin subtitles. And I could tell that something was a little off, but they didn't tell me until like after the film ended, 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 40 minutes later. They're like, "Yeah, we didn't really like this one." So I talked to my wife. It's like, "Oh yeah, the subtitles are wrong." Like, oh, that was a waste of time. But at least there was I that we didn't have that issue with the Dark Knight Rises. But all that is to say is that a lot of the stuff is derived from panels. There's some things that can only be told through that medium, an animation medium, and it's with Splat Rabbit. It's at first when I got first introduced, because our talk first, I immediately knew, like, oh, here's a brother in Christ. So he's someone that's outspoken. I just wasn't sure what your comic strip was about. So when I tuned in, I thought, oh, this is more on the political side, because it was Splat begging May not to leave.
Yeah, that was a big one. John Doyle shared that one out, so it got a lot of traction. So like, yeah, that was a big
Yeah,
one.
when I saw that, like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that means. It's so like, also there's a political strip. So then when I started tuning in, I started the other panels of the continuation of the story. I'm like, this isn't political. It has a lot more Christian overtone, overtly overtone, unabashedly overtone, and it's like, okay, so I could see where this is going and where it's also coming from, because someone that has that passion for Christ, what he's done for you, and how you're channeling that to the world, and literally spreading the gospel through a different means and medium, and in bite-sized portions too, especially with attention spans being so small. So when I saw that, okay, so it isn't political like I thought it was. I thought it was gonna be like a Ben Garrison cartoon, which is political caricatures and things like that. Cause like there's a ton of those. So I
Yeah.
thought this is unique. Cause the one there is a moment where there was like social commentary, if you will, the part where Splat goes to talk to Bugs Bunny, and the reactions in the comments were, "Oh, why did you do this? Does this really happen?" And like, yes, it did, it did. And it's sometimes life imitates art, but and in those things, uh, it speaks a volume because it's in a way like we can't physically go to Bugs Bunny and complain, but
Right.
Splat was speaking for the lot of us, like, "Dude, how could you do this to us?" You know, it really
Yeah.
resonated, and it resonated so much that it shocked people. They didn't believe that was actually true until you shared the link.
Yeah. No, people, they're slowly taking over everything. There are certain things that you thought would not get touched, and certain things that you still might think might not ever be touched, but you never know because the way that things are going in this world today, they want everybody on their side. And I think that in a lot of ways, their recent efforts to push harder is revealing that more people do not want to see it, as evidenced by Lightyear, flopping, and how Thor: Love and Thunder, Thor made all right money, but not nearly as big a bank as the previous Thor entries or previous Marvel entries did. It's kind of disappointing in that regard. And then, they just with the whole Bros movie thing with Billy Eichner going on a tangent talking about how it's homophobes' fault that Bros didn't do as good as it should have done. Like people don't want to see all this leftist nonsense just crammed and forced into everything. Number one, they're not a big sect of the population. So this representation game that you're trying to play doesn't work because you're representing less than 4% of the population, and even less when you start getting into the more fringe elements of the alphabet mafia. So nobody wants to see this. And then on top of that, when you're, you know, trying to make something that embellishes your side of the aisle while at the same time trying to create something fun, I think people, recognize that. And so that's kind of I guess my long game in that regard is just to keep putting it out because really that's what it is. I love making this comic. It's one of my great joys in life. And so if it does, really catch on and we're able to do something with it, then that's great. But if nothing else, I've been able to, the Holy Spirit gave me, I should say, an idea where I'm able to embolden proper values, things that people actually want to hear and see echoed and reverberated across the spectrum, shifting the Overton window. Not that Splat's shifting the Overton window, but perhaps being a step towards shifting it a little bit more to the right. That's what we're here to do. But it's interesting what you said about animation and the whole Batman thing and your parents, because that's what I tell people all the time. Uh, that's why I love cartoons so much, because I think really the answer to that, sort of questioning, like, well, how come everybody wants to get down cartoons and yet everybody loves these like these Batman movies and everything like that? And I
Right.
think it's simply because we do relate to it more because everything is so, you know, flanderized and so exaggerated in a cartoon, we're able to relate to it more. You ever notice how when you see people get those caricatures at like the fairs and the boardwalks, that somehow the drawing looks more like them than they actually do in real life? It's because you're taking those features on them that are special and exaggerating them to a point where it becomes more like that person than it is. And it's the same thing with storytelling. We can relate to characters more in animation versus in a live action setting because, our brains gravitate towards that exaggerated style more so than it does something that we could just see in our day-to-day walks. So I think that that's where that all comes from because even those old people that are like, oh, we can't stand cartoons. Cartoons are for kids. We don't want to see that baby stuff. They could still remember their old Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear cartoons like they were yesterday. They remember all that old stuff. They remember Batman and Scooby Doo, just like the kids today are going to remember things like Steven Universe, Adventure Time, whatever they got going on Nickelodeon. I don't keep up with the cartoons anymore, but like, the kids that grow up with the cartoons now are going to remember them later. So that's kind of, I guess, at the intersection where I meet, where um we're trying to give people more animated, more exaggerated content, but that speaks to an area that doesn't get nearly as much attention in the media.
Yeah, and while we're still speaking, I pulled up your Instagram for people to have an idea of what your comics look like because they're very bold, they're colorful, in your face in a way, and the plotting, the pacing. I the only gripe I have with some panels, like, ah, that's the last slide. Normally, you don't swipe all the you don't want to swipe like I gotta swipe through all these. Like this one's like, oh wait, that's the last one. Like you want to read more, and that's actually a really good thing because it's like you're doing something right. You're tapping into something that's great, and it's telling a story that's engaging, and people are really interested in. Especially like you said, you had your panels 90 through 100 basically done and ready to go, and that is like the itch that people has. Like, oh man, where's this going? It's like the episode on Netflix ended like next. It's like that's what they were hoping for, but it's like, oh, you gotta wait, and
Right.
it built the anticipation. That was actually a good thing. You don't have to binge everything all at once, but that built anticipation. And let me scroll down just a little bit here to see. This you have a sketch here. So is this what it looks like before it becomes like colorized?
Right, that's what they look like. Now that's kind of got some edits on it to kind of make it look a little more sketchy because I was doing a take on me style video type thing there. But yeah, that's generally how the sketches look in the sketchbook before they actually get rendered in full digital.
Yeah, no, that's cool stuff. I know this is political,
Yeah,
but
some are
really,
political, some are not. You got a mixed bag there, different things.
there is a point that I want to get back to before getting there. Um, well, actually, no, I'm just gonna segue to that. So this second shelf here, since we're getting to know each other, this is for what I call the Critic Corner. The Critic Corner, I used to do an amateur movie blog from 2003 to 2009. Took a bit of a hiatus. Did introduce it as a segment, as I did what is called the newsreel. The newsreel because I wasn't able to do original news content anymore. I was getting busier in life. I had more time when I was in college and university to be able to
Yeah,
keep up. And then Twitter became a thing, so it became easier for me just to blog my thought micro blog my thoughts on Twitter than it was having to do on my blog. So it was easier for me to do that, to post the news there instead of trying to create a whole blog post and throw it out and publish it to my blogger. So I took the time to create opinion editorials every now and then. But then every now and then, like, you know what? I did enjoy or had gripes with a certain movie or TV show. So I did still have some commentary because you couldn't take that love and affinity for certain content that out of me, even though I wasn't actively promoting anymore. So the highlight of my career was 2008. Yes, and I call it a career. 2008 because I was part of
yeah.
the viral campaign for the fans with Warner Brothers, and that was for The Dark Knight. So I'm the probably the biggest Batman fan you'll ever meet. Actually, I am Batman, but don't tell anybody. So the thing is,
Whoa.
so when I was a part of that, when I tell you the first time we saw, because I have memorabilia from the film. I have a copy of the Gotham Times, the first edition, that was used as prop for the film, and
Hey.
uh, we got the digital images first of Heath Ledger coming off the makeup chair. Like when I saw, like, people are gonna be blown away. And
Wow.
as a reward for my participation, Warner Brothers invited me. They didn't have me sign an NDA, so that was good. I was invited to Universal City Walk for a private screening of The Dark Knight. So I was among the first in the world, if not the first, to have a review of The Dark Knight. That
Wow.
was the biggest traction on my site at the time. And if
That's
I'm
crazy.
like, dude, if I retire, this is the best way to retire. I mean, it's a lifelong dream. It was outstanding and an amazing experience. Um, I still did a few things here and there. The last thing Warner Bros. Invited me to was the second Hobbit movie. I signed an NDA because they didn't want that anymore. Like, you can't review this. So like, okay, but they still wanted they still wanted that, like, that sound bite. So I was honest. I'm like, it was better than the first. That's not saying much because I hated the first. I don't like the Hobbit movies, but I was still honest. It was better than the first. That's not saying much though. but
Mm.
but in that, it's and here's how I that's a little bit of history about me, and because I have that as a background. I'm also an author over here on this shelf. not the Ecclesiastes book, but next to it are my published works. I'm gonna publish my third novel here by the end of the year, possibly two books by the end of the year. So I am uh,
Wow.
an artist in that sense. I've created a bunch of stories and characters, and I am working on my own series of books that I said I hope I can bring out the first book by the time my daughter graduates from high school. And I'm talking about like still 9 more years to go just to publish my first book. That's how much work has is going into it. I've already worked on it since 2006. So that's how much work has poured into this thing. So
Wow.
I have that's my background in art. Okay. And my popular series right now is called The Many Misadventures of Enoch Bellagio. That's
Enoch
a
Bellagio. That's such a name. I like that.
Yeah, I came up with that with my wife. It's like, I wanted Enoch because I could play off with the name, Enoch Walk with God. I could do so many puns with his name. And then but I need a Spanish or European sounding name, but it doesn't really make uh, a unique one. My wife said, why not Bellagio? I was like, I could make that work. So essentially,
Enoch
without getting
Bellagio. That is such a bar. Like I'm stuck on this name. That's such a good name for a character. Wow.
right.
Where can we go to read more about Enoch Bellagio?
Amazon, Kindle, and print. So that's where you can definitely get it. As a matter of fact, here's book one. This one's called Finding Love, but Not Really. So
Huh.
it's a romantic comedy series. The second book to that is There and Back Again, Not a Hobbit's Tale. So the
It's called Not
third,
a Hobbit's Tale.
not a Hobbit's Tale.
That's funny.
Yeah. So the third book, the official title now is called I Know Where I Am. I've Been Lost Here Before. So the whole thing is it's a in a way it's a retelling of my romantic life or the lack thereof and being bullied in high school
Oh
and getting
wow.
serious with Christ. And I have
Okay.
people that realize that background because I had private readers on my first manuscript. Like, guys, I never done a book to publish. So I don't know how to do this. Can you guys read as I complete the chapters? My intention was to complete the big fat novel first before putting it out there, but the just like the reaction of your fans from panels 90 to 100 and they wanted more and more and more, that became the catalyst for when like, okay, I'm gonna break this up into books then, not just one big fat novel. I'll break it up into books, and I published the first one, and it's like, when's the next one coming out? And like, well, crap, now I gotta do the next one. So like, I didn't think I was gonna do the next one. So now it's been a couple of years, and I'm overdue for the third one because I redid the show. What you see now is the completely redone show
Yeah.
from the time of the Newsreel Critic Corner stuff. So that took on life of its own, and in a way, those that knew me best, they would sometimes message me or call me and say, "Hey, I just finished this one segment in the book. Did this really happen?" And that became a very common thing because some of those that grew up with me were shocked by what they read. It's like, but how would you include such dark material in a so-called romantic comedy? I was inspired by Korean drama that had dark elements to it. Say, hey, look, so I can use this avenue to pique
Mm.
interest in people. And a lot of people started knowing more about me and my life by what I'm telling through this character, Enoch Bellagio. I can I can project my experiences onto this character. Some of them are a different timeline in a way because it didn't happen at that age or that stage, but that's fine because it's for the reader to grow with the character and see where this is going. So the catharsis is in book three to finish the first arc. This whole thing started with me just trying to tell the story of how I met my wife. But then I told my wife, but you don't know everything that led up to me finally meeting you, that prepared me, how God prepared me to receive you and you to receive me. And that what made me go all backwards in time to pick a moment in time that I'm going to start from here as my starting off point to get to that uh meeting her.
Right.
So arc one is really Enoch Bellagio coming into his own. And there's a lot of details that I don't want to spoil it for anybody, so they can definitely check it out. In fact, once we wrap this recording, I like to send you book one. So we'll arrange how I can get that over to you. Okay. So once we wrap, but
Yeah. Very cool. I'm excited to read it about Enoch Bellagio.
yeah.
That's
So here comes the point that I said I wanted to circle back to. You
okay.
said that conservatives were not being creative, were not creative enough, or they weren't jumping onto it. The very few people can mention maybe cartoons or Christian shows they might have grew up in that were of high production value. I would rank VeggieTales among those. They were among the first to try their hands at 3D animation. But before that, there was a show called McGee and Me. That was from the late 80s from Focus on the Family.
I remember
Along,
McGee and Me. Yeah.
did you ever hear of the Last Chance Detectives?
The Last Chance Detectives. I want to say that sounds familiar, but I can't really put a face to it.
Group of kids living in New Mexico solving mysteries. So there's 3 mini films made about that. Those are cinema production uh, vehicles, but they only made 3, and I don't know if that was intentional, but if they could have told more. Um, but they were excellent works. But I those are the only ones I could point to. Maybe in Espanol would be Super Libro, the Super Book, because it was on Prime now. They have Super Book, but it's missing the charm that the animation had. It was it looks like it was very heavily anime influenced, despite the fact that it is predominantly Latin American.
Yeah.
Telling time traveling books, and of course, go before that Hanna Barbera cartoons. Yes, the same ones that did the Flintstones, the Jetsons. They did the greatest stories ever told, with characters that are traveling through this time warp and visiting biblical eras. Where has it all gone? I don't know. Where did we lose sight of all this? Because when we finally get a Christian product, instead of going out to support the Christian product, we have the collective Christendom judging the product. Well, that's not biblically accurate. They didn't do this or they didn't do that. Oh, no, 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 no. Jesus would never have been there. The latest one would be The Chosen. The
Yeah.
Chosen is a Kickstarter campaign, so to speak, that just blew up, and it came at the right time. I didn't jump on it immediately because of Dallas Jenkins, the showrunner and executive producer. He said some things that I didn't like, and it wasn't in reference to his show. It was in reference to a show that I loved. I loved AD, The Bible Continues, or AD the series as it's renamed. Many people don't know that one as the follow up to um or I want to say the follow-up because not really the follow-up to the Bible series that came out on the History Channel that was a massive hit.
You
I
know,
don't
I
know you
think
ever.
I think I remember watching this, the AD the Bible Continues back in the day. I think I actually remember tuning in for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was on NBC. It was for broadcast television, and I'm
That's what
shocked
and
that
it was I remember that now because it was so crazy that NBC was like producing this at this time. Like it was like, wow, NBC is really producing this series and
they
everybody I remember this one. That's
they
crazy.
spent $100
Yeah.
million on that show.
Yeah.
$100 million, and it shows. The production values are the most expensive I've ever seen of any Christian television programming up to that point.
Yeah.
And not just that, NBC actually did like The Walking Dead had the Talking Dead show afterwards. They
Uh-huh.
did something called talk Beyond AD. I actually showed up for the last taping of that in around Six Flags for those familiar of Valencia, California, north just the north side of SoCal here in California. Well, there were so many people tearing apart ADs like, oh no, it's not entirely biblically accurate, this and that's like they're not retelling. Look, if you want the Bible used as like the book of Acts, for example, you want the book of Acts used as a script, it's been done before. It's called the book of Acts. And they did a follow-up to that called the book of Matthew. These productions were done in the 80s and early 90s. They're very well done by
Yeah.
prominent Christian actors of the time. But now it's now, and AD the Bible continues. I think it was improperly named and marketed because it was marketed as the Bible continues, but not really, since you technically finished the Bible series in the show the for History Channel. What they failed to tell was that this was the story of from the disciples' perspective,
Yeah.
uh,
After Jesus.
after Jesus gets arrested.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're
Yeah.
seeing everything through the eyes of the disciples. In particular, we're seeing it through Peter and John, Mary Magdalene.
Right.
Later, when we're introduced to Saul of Tarshish, look, my brother-in-law was not a believer at the time, and he ended up watching that show. So when he saw this guy already persecuting them, Saul of Tarshish, he did not know what was coming next. So when the episode after that was called "The Road to Damascus," he thought, "Oh my goodness, Jesus is gonna confront this guy." It's like, "Oh snap, Jesus is gonna tear him a new one or evaporate him." And then next thing I was like, "Wait." what happened? It's
He
like
forgave him?
Jesus is gonna use this guy. What? He couldn't grasp that. The Holy Spirit
He is
was
so good.
was
He's
moving
so
behind that show. There's three crucial elements in that moved me to tears because they were so powerful. It wasn't like if I have one major gripe about the show, it's well, two major gripes. One is that they took Stephen, and instead of having this wise senior man that everyone respected, even the Sadducees and Pharisees, they made him into a brash young firebrand that went to confront the Sanhedrin. Like, no, but still, the stoning of Stephen is still shocking and a gut punch. So the impact's still there. The downside is if they make it look like it was some young kid that was just waiting in over his head talking back to the leaders when it wasn't.
yeah,
It was one of them chosen
yeah.
by the Spirit to replace Judas to do that, which
And
is
man,
what
what a powerful. I'm sorry to stop you there, but I every time I hear about Stephen, like I get chills, man, because his testimony, when you actually read it in the Bible, and I highly encourage anybody listening to this to go and read the story. This man went all the way from the beginning and quoted from Adam through Abraham, Moses, the major prophets, everything up to that point, and told them who Jesus was. And matter of fact, actually, if I could, I don't have my Bible near me right now from where I'm sitting, but if I remember correctly, and Lord, hopefully I'm recounting correctly. May your Holy Spirit lead me here. He doesn't even like he doesn't like get stoned. Like they were listening to his testimony up until he looked up and saw Jesus from the heavens and called to him, sitting at the right hand of God. That was the moment where they turned towards him and picked up the stones. It was like,
yeah,
man,
exactly. They were
he
upset at him, but
they
when
were
he
upset
said,
at him.
I see, I see Christ sitting at the right hand of the throne of God," it's like, oh, that's it. We're stoning you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's always, and that's the other thing. I think you mentioned that you kind of leaned into it earlier, and I forgot to pick back up on it. But a lot of people don't pick that up that when Jesus called himself the Son of God, the Pharisees understood exactly what he was talking about. Whenever he refers to himself as the Son of God, to be the Son of something is to be like that thing. So for him to be the Son of God, he was as unto God. And that's why the Pharisees were punishing him because he was the Messiah in front of their faces and they were looking for somebody else. They were like, this guy cannot be it. He simply cannot be it. Can anything
And
good come out of Nazareth? Like they were not willing to hear him out. They studied this text. This is why religiosity is so you got to be led by the Spirit. If you let your religiosity get to you, you are going to miss miracles and miss opportunities right in front of your face. We have to be plugged into the Spirit of God that He left for us in His absence until He comes back.
absolutely. And to hammer that point, that's what AD was showing because it's telling the story of the time of Christ through three different lenses. From Pontius Pilate, who was trying to contain the powder keg that was happening in Judea at the time, and then just goes kaboom during
Mm-hmm.
with Christ's crucifixion and subsequent murder,
Mm-hmm.
and also from Caiaphas, the high priest, and seeing how he's trying to hold the peace also, and having to break certain rules, like to have the trial in the dead of night and things like that, because of how many Jews have already been killed through uprisings because they think the Messiah has showed up, and thereby throwing into a wrench this whole thing. These illiterate, uneducated people saying, yes, Jesus is the Son of God, and he's here to help us and lead us to. He is King and will free us. It's like, wait a minute, you're gonna start a rebellion. You're getting all these people riled up, and it's showing you from that perspective a very violent time because I'm shocked that that was broadcast television AD because it was very grossly violent. In particular, an execution scene towards the latter end of the season. I'm like, holy smokes, this was TV. Man, I thought NBC's Heroes was violent. This took the cake. And that's why some Christians abandoned the show. Says this show is just gratuitous with its violence. They're just trying to compete against Game of Thrones. It's like, do you not realize that the time was already violent enough? It's
Did they not realize that the times are violent now? Just
right
because
now.
we see glimpses of it here in America because we have a civilized backbone. There's some sort of structure here. But when you go into these other places, these third world countries and everything like that, you see the real. I mean, just look at what they did to that girl. I mean, folks have their rules, they have their principalities, they have all this stuff set up, and if you don't step in line, you will be beaten, you will be tortured, you will be jailed, you will be this, you'll be killed, you know? And people don't realize that this is how it goes. We've been so coddled in the modern day, and so like desensitized to like movie level violence, but at the same time not plugged in enough that this could be real, that this could be actually happening in a less civilized society. Like people are taking all this for granted, but really the main thing is that people need to be plugged into Christ, because we may see a time like that come back, because with the things that they are doing and the things that they have planned for us with AI and transhumanism and these world banks and these countries trying to come up with their own cryptocurrencies and stuff, it's just to get us into this beast system. It's to get us all plugged in, and that's sort of the things that we need to be touching on more. It's harder to grasp because reality is stranger than fiction. These folks want to live in a clouded time where they don't have to really put that much thought into what they're going to have to do, because life is tough. Life wears down on you. You don't want to think that the threat of these elites, in the background, but it's there, and it's only by the peace of God that comes from trusting in Him and trusting in the Spirit and being reliant on God and in God. That's the only way we're going to make it through it, and that's why we have to let the people know. We have to spread the gospel. We have to talk about biblical things. We have to keep our mind on noble things. The word tells us this, and that's what we have to do. You and me as content creators, and hopefully to inspire other people to do more of that as well. Maybe not as content creators, but definitely in their spheres of influence, especially families.
No, absolutely. And it's this whole thing about like I guess trying to live beyond the physical body, but still present here on Earth in a way, even if it's in the digital sphere or metaverse, so to speak. He who tries to hold on to his life shall lose it. Maybe they missed that one.
Yeah,
But it's when
yeah,
you
just a
see
little bit.
yeah, right. So like, man, you're really trying to hold on to that. There's this. I love that phrase. I think it's highly underrated because it's spoken so quietly in the first film, Jurassic Park, the only Jurassic Park film that's good, actually. So let's just call it the only Jurassic Park.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But it's when Ian Malcolm says, "God creates dinosaurs, God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man, man destroys God, man creates dinosaurs." Because man is desperately trying to be God. It's like, dude, the
Yeah.
philosophy just in that phrase, like, wow, wow. Mike, I don't know if Michael Crichton, who wrote the story, included that in his novel, or if some adapter of the screenplay decided to throw it in. I don't know. I haven't read the book, but that is such a poignant phrase that speaks to exactly to what's going on now.
Yeah.
Because it's like what that's why AI is such. It's the only thing that man can point to and say that I created that, and
Yeah.
like, and
Ian
uh-huh.
I'm sorry to kind of pop in here, but Ian Malcolm was like has so many quotable moments. I mean, the part where he says something to the effect of, "You created this, and before you even knew what you had, you slapped it on T-shirts and lunch boxes and marketed it to the people, before you even had it up and going." And that's another thing with this whole AI rollout and Meta's rollout and everything like that. It's like you have no idea. Well, and maybe they have an idea. Maybe that's exactly what it is. Like
Intentional.
he's saying you have no idea, but really they know exactly what it is that they're doing. And my other favorite one that I quote from all the time, specifically when I refer to like the Holy Spirit, is just what he talks about when the dinosaurs go haywire, where he just goes, life finds a way. I mean, that's but that's how the Spirit works. Though the elite and though people would try to tear God away and live by their own intuition and live for their own comfort and joy and bliss and everything like that, the Holy Spirit has a way of revealing itself to people. The Holy Spirit has a way of teaching people things, of warning people of things, of giving them visions and grand utterances and ideas and stuff. The Holy Spirit finds a way, and in that way is life. And so life finds a way.
Yeah. And to put a cap a little bit on the Christian content creation, the support that the Chosen has received, and that I think there's been a little bit of a concern that there hasn't been a season 3 yet. But Dallas Jenkins himself said, "Look, the weather, I don't know what weather, but the weather, I think it was fires or something like that, that were making it really difficult to film. But they did finish filming during editing right now. I think the show is supposed to release next month, or maybe even this month for season 3, 'cause it's highly anticipated. The thing is." Remember, I said that I was offended by Dallas Jenkins because he attacked one of my favorite biblical shows. Well, he came under fire for some things that he said. He said it was a hill to die on. Like, because for me, when I saw that Angel Studios partnered up with The Chosen after season one to kind of like give it a boost, I'm like, wait, but Angel Studios is that's from the Mormon Church, the the, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So are they letting you borrow the Jerusalem set? Because when I finally watched The Chosen, I'm like, hey, this is actually pretty good. So then I saw season two and like, wow, this is really, really good. Then I wait a minute, where did you film this? This was like Utah. Don't tell me this is the Mormon thing. And like, yeah, okay, I'm all right. I got no issues with the Mormons letting you borrow their things. But then the interview came out of how much the Mormons were actually involved in the production of this thing, and for
Mm,
Dallas Jenkins to say that that we all believe in the same Christ, like, oh no, we don't. No, 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 we
yeah,
don't. Dude, this
yeah,
is a slippery slope because one of the big issues that some on the Christian leadership were having with the Chosen itself was, yeah, you're making Jesus fiction, because technically you admittedly you are, and
yeah.
like
You're making, yeah,
what would Jesus do? And I got no true issue with that, unless people are taking the Chosen as gospel and are more moved by the Chosen than they are by the text that is derived from. And that is a take that I actually responded to. There's a channel called The Wretched with Tom Friel. He did a take on this recently. He's in several takes. But I responded to it to I did an essay as a response to that just a few weeks ago. Um, and it showed I was more in agreement um with what Tom Friel was saying, that it's very dangerous that the Chosen can be heresy. But I also said, and so long as it's acknowledged that it's artistic license, that's where I hope people could take it from. Otherwise, we got to toss out almost every single like fiction book from the Christian bookstores. Because then, if we can't do anything of the time that borrows Jesus in a way, then we got to take it out. It's so that's
right.
where
It's
I was trying to draw a line. But therein goes my point that I do understand. I do understand some apprehension from Christians to support a work. However, when there is a work that we can get behind of, like some people have their issues with Passion of the Christ, just like they had the issues with AD, the Bible continues, without ever having seen it. And they only rely on mainstream media's discussion of it to make a judgment call on it instead of experiencing for themselves. And it says, is this rooted in, if you're going to judge it as a theology, are you going to just go and say, is this biblically based? Or is this a complete perversion of the word? And AD isn't. Neither was the Passion of the Christ. It had some Catholic influences, to be sure, but other than that, it didn't. To which I would then venture, and here's a little bit of pushback on yours. Some of that criticism you might have received. Do have some people found Splat Rabbit to be a little too violent or a little too raw for the digestion?
there have been people that have cited my use of cartoon violence and have tried to attach nefarious narratives to it, mostly from the liberal camp. Back when, especially when I first started implementing it, I think it was around the time where Kentaji Brown was Jackson was being put up for the Supreme Court. I had a lot of people come by and were just like, "Oh, look, this is obviously a comic to contain your murder fantasies because you want people on the other side to die." And that's something that they put on anybody who's right of Hillary Clinton. I mean, anything that they do is violence. Anything that they say is a dog whistle, calling the violence the white supremacist mob and everything like that. Not too much pushback from Christians, but at the same time, I see what you're saying with the pushback from AD, with the pushback from the Chosen. Really, with anything that involves Christianity, you're going to get some pushback from people as to your methods and the things that you say. I think the important thing that people, both creators and the audience, have to realize is that at the end of the day, the responsibility lies on each of us as followers of Christ to know the word, to have a relationship with God, and to be able to live on that, not on what the Chosen is saying, not on what Splat Rabbit is saying, not on what VeggieTales has said. Because newsflash, we these are stories that are based on the Bible and have some sort of biblical influence, but at the end of the day, they are stories, and stories
Yes.
have to have certain amounts of padding, certain amount of unique elements in order to go out. As long as it's not straight up like blasphemy, as long as you're not like nefarious in your attempts, which them receiving that much funding from the LDS, it's a little bit eyebrow raising. Uh, but at the same time, you look at the finished work and you got to judge it for what it is. Is this going too far? Is this blasphemous? Is it this? Is it that? I don't think that any of those works are inherently blasphemous, and I think that beyond that, you don't need to be you don't need to have that religiosity whenever you're judging these works. You need to just see what they're trying to say, and then how does that measure up with the Bible? If it's a good
Yeah.
representation of the Bible, then we're good. If it's blasphemous, if it's kind of off-putting, then yeah, of course. And these creators should want to hear that criticism, because you want to lead people down a good path. But at the end of the day, these are stories. These are stories. This is ways to grab people. And it's the same thing that I've talked about at length. I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of condense this without going on a big giant rant. But I'll say this to to basically close it out. I used to have beef with big mega church pastors, your Stephen Furtick's, your Mike Todd's, and everything like that. And I do think that some of their teaching is flat out dangerous. But I do think that there's a place for a Furtick or a Mike Todd. I think that their their churches having the influence that they have allows people that normally wouldn't have ever encountered the gospel to hear that on some level. And again, I say all the time that church is just a building. We are the bodies of Christ, us individually, those that have accepted Christ as Savior. We have to have that responsibility to go through and pursue God for ourselves, not because of what Furtick said, not because of what an actual good pastor said, but because of what the word says and what that word means. You know, what that word means. What was Jesus' original interpretation? What did God mean by this? What was being exhibited here? There's a place for people who are opening up the gospel for an audience that normally wouldn't. Uh, but that person has a responsibility to make sure that they're learning as well. Essentially, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and this is actually the thought that I wanted to close us out on, because you actually brought up first. I'm glad we're in sync here, because I too have issues with mega churches. I'm not as kind as you are with just now. Um,
I used to not be. I used to say shut them all down, but like at the same time, I've come to realize. But I want to hear what you're going to say about it.
yeah, Trevor. Last year, Trevor. What was his acquaintance of ours, a buddy that we come to know through how we cross paths here through the internet. But Trevor was the first one that had reached out to me. Well, the first one I accepted to do a collab with, and he identified himself at the time as a third wave atheist, but someone on pursuit of the truth. So like, interesting. So he brought me on his program after filming mine and asked me a question, and this was actually on my Instagram somewhere. That can the collective body of of Christendom and Catholicism come together to basically create an anti-CRT coalition to push back against CRT? And I simply responded and said no. It's like, oh, why? Because in some respects, the church is responsible for this. Because
Mm,
a lot of churches, particularly the mega churches, are pushing a lot of these very things that he's calling out as issues. They are at the forefront of some of these things. When Gene Robinson was the first openly gay bishop in the United Methodist, I think it was, or Baptist, I forget, one of the two. Uh, where was the pushback? It was like, no, we're becoming more inclusive and accepting. There's a church not too far from where I am. I don't want to say exactly where I am, but where I am, who in this downtown city, neighboring to mine, proudly puts on their church logo, it's a rainbow because they are inclusive and welcoming, they say. And that's twisting what Christ said, come just as you are. Because, oh, yeah, Jesus will remember, Jesus is with the homeless, Jesus is with the prostitutes. Yeah, at no point did he condone their lifestyle. He told them to go and sin no more. But that's not what they're saying. They're
you're right.
perverting. Now, this is where, or Jesus' words come like, in the end times, there will be those that come in my name and say, hey, Lord, Lord, we cast out demons in your name. We heal people. we did all these in your name, and he'll say, "Get away, I do not know you," because uh, there is the wolves in sheep's clothing are the church, and some people are more enamored by a charismatic speaker than they are about the God that that person's professing to preach about. So we gotta look for the God behind the man, and if they're not worshiping God, they're worshiping mammon. It's the wrong church. So to an
Yes.
extent, I agree with what you're saying because I remember having a hot take a long time ago when that movie Jarhead came out and it played the music from Kanye West of Jesus Walks, and I'm an instrumental guy, so anything that's not classical or symphonic or orchestral, I'm against. Because like, I don't care, I don't like it. It's not music to me. That doesn't mean I can't
Yeah.
appreciate some of it. But when I heard that, a friend of mine was defending it. Oh yeah, many people are going to be exposed to Christ. I was like, well, I don't think that Kanye is the best avenue to be able to be exposed to Christ in a way because he's not an ambassador for Christ. And then seeing how his life has transformed later on, it's like, okay, that's a little different. So
Yeah.
so in that I can say yes, but not to the churches that try to maintain a sheepified people that do not branch out to get to know the truth. Because those that
Yes.
are searching the truth, such as Trevor, has been on this path, such as someone named Nate Cap that I had on my show earlier this year in an episode
Hmm.
that I entitled "What Is Truth," because we discussed for an hour and a half talking about what truth is from his philosophical and grounded experience, and me coming from the Christian experience. And at the very end, almost intersecting, I say almost everything you said comes from the Bible. That means you're coming here. So I'll meet you here where I am. You're gonna
Yes.
on your path to Christ. So that's where I say I agree with what you're saying that some people might receive that exposure, but it's hoping that the spirit works in them and illuminates the path for them to get to the truth, even if it's not in that church. It's like, it's
Yes.
not here. There's something more. It's not here. It's missing. Then they go out to search, not to search. "Well, what church is the best fit for me?" Say, no, where's God calling me? And
Hmm.
they're they go after that hunger, and then they finally get fed because when they reach the truth will set them free. And that's what we're excited for them to see and they get to. And that's where I said that we were kind of both closing on that thought, and
Right.
I think that's a great way to close it out. I'll let you have the final say on this one.
Yes, and you're 100% right, and that's kind of what I was speaking to specifically. Like, if it's one of those churches that bolster the rainbow stuff and the BLM and the current social mores of the day, no, they're to be avoided at all costs. There's no truth in that church because they're just trying to cash in. They're just trying to be inclusive, and the gospel isn't always inclusive, as we like to say in our modern vernacular. But yeah, we basically came to the same conclusion. As long as they're not full tilt going for inclusivity, that's where my mercy lies. Like, if somebody could go into Elevation Church, hear what Furtick says, and where they might not have accepted it right then, and maybe Furtick helps them to digest that a little easier, they get that milk, then good. Now, will they be transformed? Did they truly have a moment with God? Will they go and search for meat? That's
Yeah,
that's my hope that I get from it all. It doesn't always happen that way, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people want to, shut these people out, and why I wanted to shut them out for so long. But at the same time, I'm a hardened individual. I'm working on peace at the moment to be able to deal with people more because as this grows, I'm hoping to get into more places where I can actually speak to more people. And I need to not be able to be so on them. I don't need to pull out any dynamites or bombs like Splat would in
like
that moment, So that's my whole thing is just, having that peace and being able to give something to them, plant the seeds so that the spirit of God can move. Because at the end of the day, we don't save anybody ourselves anyway. We don't have that power. The Holy Spirit, the blood of Jesus is what gets them saved. So that's what we're trying to do here. That's what we're trying to help advance the gospel, help people to hear a word that they can use and then apply to their lives so that they can be renewed and live forever in the loving embrace of the Father, as it were.
amen. Plant the seed, let God do the watering and everything else. BZ, where can the audience follow you?
Yes, sir. You can follow me. You can follow the rabbit, Splat Rabbit, at splat.rabbit.art on Instagram. That's the big account. That's where all the comics get posted. pretty much all the reels and the everything else gets posted. We're working on getting some merch and getting the website back into good shape. So stay tuned for that. You can also follow me. I'm trying to not put as much me into it. Obviously, I got my cam off and everything like that. But I do have other accounts. BeeZ Ink and Toys. It is on Instagram. It's also on Twitter. I have a Telegram space, and you can find all that on any of the channels. So hit me up there. Splat Rabbit, BeeZ Ink and Toys. We're making comics. We're trying to advance the gospel. We're dunking on the libs a little bit. It's going to be a fun time. All glory to God.
Amen. Yeah, the left can't meme, so that's why they don't like stuff like yours.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those listening on the podcast, you know the drill. All the links will be available on the show notes of the company's episode at www.segovia.com. BeeZ, thank you so much for being on the program. This was fun. You're on
Thank
the
you for
short
having
list.
me.
You're on the short list for a Christian artist roundtable I'm preparing. Might be the end of this year or might be early next year, but I'm gonna keep you in the loop.
Okay, sounds good. I'd love to be there.
All right. Well, that's it. Everyone, I'll see you on the next one.
All right, peace out.